The house on Black Hollow Road. The walls remember. The smell was thicker now, clinging to the back of my throat. I swallowed against the nausea, but the air felt syrupy, as though each breath dragged something invisible inside me. Michael shut the attic ladder behind us with a sharp push, like closing a coffin lid. "We're not going back up there," he said. I didn't argue. The hallway seemed longer on the way back to the stairs. The pictures along the wall weren't quite the same as before. A child's face replaced with a shadow, a background tree missing from a yard. Little changes, small enough that I could almost convince myself my memory was wrong. Lightning flashed outside, painting the hallway in bone-white light. For a fraction of a second I saw movement. A woman standing just at the bend ahead, hair hanging in wet strands over her face. And then she was gone. I froze. "Michael." "I saw her," he said before I could finish. We didn't move for several heartbeats. The thunder came late, long and low like a growl. Michael forced a laugh that sounded more like an exhale of fear. "It's the storm messing with us." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe a lot of things. We went downstairs, aiming for the living room where we'd left our bags. I wanted to leave right then, drive the slick roads back to anywhere that wasn't here. But when we reached the front door, it wouldn't open. Not jammed. Not locked. The knob turned freely, but the door simply refused to give, as if something far heavier than the storm pressed against it from outside. Michael swore under his breath and tried the back door. Same thing. "This is insane," I whispered. A sudden chime startled us both, high, tinkling notes like a child's music box. We turned toward the parlor. The sound came from a small, dust-coated table beneath the front window. On it sat a music box I recognized immediately. Carved wood, tiny brass hinges, a ballerina inside that used to spin when the lid opened. It had belonged to our mother. I knew it wasn't possible. I'd seen that very box shattered in the attic after her funeral. But here it was, whole, the ballerina twirling slowly to a warped, dragging version of the lullaby she used to hum when tucking us into bed. Michael's voice was flat. "Don't touch it." I wasn't planning to. The ballerina's head tilted back at an unnatural angle mid-spin, then snapped upright again as if nothing happened. The song ended abruptly. We stared at the still figure for a long moment, the silence afterward heavier than the music. That's when the whispering started. At first, I thought it was the storm sneaking through the gaps in the old window panes. But no, it was too structured, syllables forming without quite becoming words. It came from the walls themselves, like someone speaking just behind the plaster. Michael pressed his ear to the wallpaper. His face went pale. "It's your voice," he said. "What?" He stepped back. "It's you." Saying my name over and over. The whisper stopped as soon as I moved closer. The wall smelled faintly of wet soil. Lightning flashed again, and the window glass reflected 3 figures instead of 2. Michael spun, but there was no one behind us. We didn't go near the walls again. We decided to make camp in the living room, less space to watch, and the fireplace still had an old pile of wood beside it. Michael lit it, and the orange light drove back some of the shadows. The house seemed quieter when the flames danced, though the storm raged on outside. We went through some of Raymond's boxes, hoping distraction would make the hours pass faster. Most were full of junk, outdated bills, mildewed books, brittle newspapers. But at the bottom of one box was something stranger, a stack of journals bound in cracked leather. Michael flipped one open. The handwriting inside was precise, neat. At first it looked like simple daily records, weather, visitors, chores. But as he read, his brows knitted tighter. "What?" I asked. "This entry's from 1996, he said, "but it talks about today. Driving up here in the rain. You wearing that coat. Me, slamming the trunk. Even mentions the upstairs light being on." I took the book from him. The ink was dry, the page yellowed with age. There was no way this had been written tonight. At the bottom of the page, one final sentence stood out in darker ink. She will knock 3 times before the attic takes him. My skin went cold. Michael, what is this? Before he could answer, 3 sharp knocks echoed from the ceiling above us. We both looked up. The sound came again, deliberate, spaced evenly apart. Then silence. Michael dropped the journal like it burned him. The storm didn't let up, and neither did the house. The whispers returned, sometimes sounding like me, sometimes like Michael. Once I could swear I heard our mother's laugh, low and warm, exactly as I remembered from the days before things fell apart. Around midnight, Michael claimed he saw her. I woke to find him standing in the doorway to the hall, staring up the stairs. His voice was small. She's at the top, Lena. She's smiling. I joined him, my heart hammering. The stairs were empty. You don't see her? He asked, sounding almost desperate. No, I said. He rubbed his temples. Maybe I'm losing it. Maybe the house wants you to think you are. His eyes flicked to mine, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. At some point, exhaustion took me. I must have dozed by the fire, because when I opened my eyes, the room was darker, colder. The fire was dead, the air damp enough to bead moisture on my skin. Michael was gone. Michael. My voice was barely above a whisper. A floorboard creaked somewhere above. I followed the sound to the stairs, dread heavy in my stomach. The upstairs hall was black except for a faint glow from the end, my mother's old room again. The lamp was on. I stepped inside. The photograph was still on the dresser, but now both children's faces were scratched out. From the corner, the music box began to play, the warped lullaby slower than before, each note dragging as if pulled from underwater. I backed toward the door, and felt warm breath against my ear. Don't go yet. The voice was mine. When I found Michael, he was in the attic. I don't remember deciding to climb the ladder, but I must have. One moment I was in the hallway, the next my hands were on the rungs, my head breaking through into the close, musty space. He stood at the far end, facing a wall. She's here, he said without turning. She's been waiting for us. The wall in front of him pulsed. That's the only word for it, like something breathing just under the plaster. There was a small round hole at eye level. Michael leaned toward it. I grabbed his arm. Don't. She wants to show me something, he said, voice distant. Before I could stop him, he pressed his eye to the hole. His body went rigid. What do you see? I asked. He didn't answer. His lips moved silently. Then, without warning, he jerked back, clutching his face. Blood trickled from his eye, dark in the beam of the flashlight I didn't remember turning on. The pulsing in the wall slowed, then stopped. Michael staggered past me, muttering, "She's not done yet." When we returned to the living room, the journals were gone. In their place, on the floor by the fireplace, was a single sheet of paper. On it, in that same neat handwriting, was tomorrow's date. And beneath it just 2 words, the last. The first night. The first thing I noticed wasn't the house. It was the light. A single square of warm yellow burned in the upstairs window, steady and calm against the chaos of the storm, as if the gale screaming through the trees and the rain pelting my windshield didn't exist. It glowed like a beacon, or a warning. Michael killed the engine and silence crashed over us, broken only by the hiss of rain on the hood. You see that? I asked. He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the window, his mouth set in that tight line he'd worn since the funeral. There's no power up here, he said finally. Town records said it's been shut off since '09. The road had been nothing but slick mud and overhanging branches for the last 4 miles. Cell service was gone. The storm had followed us from the city, growing teeth with every mile. The plan had been simple. Get in, grab anything worth saving from Uncle Raymond's place and get out. Sell the property. Forget it ever existed. But that light. Maybe a neighbor squatting, I offered, though the nearest neighbor was a 30-minute drive. Michael popped the trunk and got out without another word. Cold rain slapped my face the second I opened the door. The air smelled like wet earth and old pine needles. By the time we reached the porch, my jeans were plastered to my legs. The key fought the lock, scraping metal on metal until it gave way with a groan. The door swung inward, revealing the stale breath of the house, a thick, damp musk of mildew, rotting wood, and something faintly sweet, like fruit left too long in a closed drawer. Inside, the darkness pressed close. Only the faint flicker of lightning through the windows gave any shape to the hallway. Dust motes swirled in the disturbed air. The wallpaper peeled in curling tongues, revealing plaster the color of old teeth. Michael's boots thudded across warped floorboards as he moved toward the staircase. "That light's upstairs," he said. I stayed in the entryway, letting my eyes adjust. The sound came first, a faint, irregular rhythm from somewhere above. Footsteps. I told myself it was water dripping through the old roof. That was the logical thing. But no matter how much I tried to pin it on the storm, the spacing was wrong. The steps were deliberate, slow. And they stopped the instant Michael reached the first stair. We both froze. The quiet was worse than the noise. Lightning flashed, flooding the hall in white for a heartbeat. The upstairs banister cast a long shadow that looked almost human in its outline. A shoulder, a head tilted slightly to one side. When the thunder rolled away, Michael said, "Stay here," and started up the stairs. The smell grew stronger the higher we went, that sweet, overripe scent cutting through the damp like a perfume too rich for the room. At the landing, the yellow light spilled from the half-open door of the room that had once been my mother's. Michael pushed it open. The lamp sat on the dresser, shade tilted, casting a cone of soft light onto the floorboards. It was plugged into the wall. I stepped inside, my pulse loud in my ears. The cord trailed to the outlet and from there into the plaster, not into the floor like normal wiring but disappearing through a jagged, blackened hole in the wall itself. "Where's it getting power?" I asked. Michael didn't answer. He was staring at the dresser surface. There, beneath the lamp, was a photograph in a tarnished silver frame. The photo was of us, me and Michael, maybe 8 and 10 years old, sitting on the porch of this very house. My mother stood behind us, her hands on our shoulders. Only, her face was gone. Not blurred, not faded. Scratched out with something sharp, leaving ragged white grooves in the paper. I picked it up and the glass rattled in the frame. My fingers came away with a faint smear of dust, and something else. Sticky. "Did you put this here?" I asked. Michael shook his head slowly. "I haven't been in this room since he trailed off." We both jumped at the sound, a soft, deliberate tap from the hallway. Something, was knocking. Once, twice. Then silence. I looked toward the door. No one was there. The storm's howl seemed distant now, muffled by the thick air inside the house. My skin prickled with the awareness that the walls felt closer than they should. Like the hallway had narrowed by inches since we came in. Michael stepped past me and yanked the door open. The hallway was empty, stretching into shadow. But halfway down, one of the picture frames on the wall was crooked. He went to straighten it. The moment his fingers touched the frame, a low creak came from directly above us. The attic. We exchanged a look. Neither of us wanted to say it, but both of us knew. The attic was supposed to be empty. We'd seen the inventory. Raymond had left nothing up there but dust. Michael's jaw tightened. "We check it now," he said, "before the storm makes it worse." I followed him reluctantly down the hall to the narrow pull-down ladder. The rope handle was frayed, and when he tugged it, a shower of dust rained down. The smell up there was different, sharper, metallic. Almost like old coins or rust. He went up first, flashlight cutting a cone through the dark. I climbed after him, my palms slick on the rungs. The attic was smaller than I remembered, beams low enough to make us crouch. The light caught on something in the far corner. A chair. Wooden, high-backed, facing away from us. Michael approached, sweeping the flashlight in an arc. The seat was empty. But on the floor beside it lay another photograph, this one torn in half. The half we could see showed me at maybe 4 years old, holding a stuffed rabbit. The other half, the part with whoever was next to me, was missing. Michael crouched to pick it up. That's when the chair legs scraped against the floor. Neither of us had touched it. The sound was small, but it felt enormous in the stillness. The chair turned a fraction, as if something invisible had shifted its weight in it. I took a step back, bumping into a stack of old boxes. Something slid inside one of them, a dry, papery sound like fingernails on cardboard. Michael's flashlight beam jerked toward the box. The lid rose half an inch, then settled again. I wanted to be anywhere else in the world. "Let's go," I said, my voice shaking. "We'll come back tomorrow?" The lamp in the bedroom below clicked off. We knew, without saying it, that we hadn't heard anyone come up or go down the attic ladder. Michael's breathing grew loud in the tight space. "Someone's in the house," he whispered. The ladder groaned. We both turned toward the opening, just in time to see it begin to fold upward on its own, the rope handle swinging like a pendulum. Michael lunged, grabbing the edge before it sealed shut. He shoved it back down and we scrambled to the hall. It was empty. But the smell, that sweet cloying rot, was everywhere now. If you want, I can roll straight into Act 2, where the house's behavior becomes more deliberate, the psychological cracks widen, and will blur the line between memory and haunting until even the reader isn't sure what's real. The house on Black Hollow Road. The last night. By morning the storm had not passed. The sky outside the warped windows was a bruise of gray and purple, rain dragging down in endless vertical lines. The air inside was colder, heavy with a damp that clung to the lungs. Every breath I took felt like inhaling water. Michael sat by the dead fireplace, staring at nothing. His hair was plastered to his forehead, though I hadn't seen him go outside. His right eye was red-rimmed, the skin around it faintly swollen where the blood had run the night before. "You need a hospital," I said. He shook his head slowly. "She'll be angry if we leave now." "Michael. She wants us to remember." That sentence landed like a stone in my gut. I tried the front door again just to feel the handle under my palm, just to hope. It still turned freely but wouldn't open. The glass panes in the frame looked different now, though, as if something stood just beyond them, its shadow pressed against the frosted surface. The shape shifted when I moved. I didn't tell Michael. The house began to change sometime in the early afternoon. It was subtle at first, the wallpaper in the hall smoothing itself, colors brightening as if freshly hung, the musty air replaced by the faint scent of my mother's perfume. Then the light outside shifted, turning warmer, almost golden. Michael followed me into the kitchen, and that's when I realized the change was worse than cosmetic. The room was exactly as it had been when we were children, linoleum floor uncracked, the table set for 3 with chipped floral plates, the hum of the old refrigerator in the corner. I backed out, heart racing. "This isn't home," Michael finished, smiling faintly. The air shimmered between us and suddenly I was 6 years old again, sitting at that table, swinging my legs while my mother poured milk into a glass. It wasn't memory. It was now. She turned to look at me, her face whole, smiling, exactly as I remembered. For a heartbeat, I forgot the years between, forgot the nights she'd locked herself in her room with the lights off, forgot the fights and the silences. Then her smile stretched too wide. The skin at the corners of her mouth tore faintly, dark lines creeping toward her cheeks. Her eyes clouded, the pupils dilating until they swallowed the irises. When she spoke, the voice was mine. "Don't fight it, Lena." I stumbled backward into Michael and the golden light snapped away. We were back in the rotting kitchen, the plates shattered on the floor, the refrigerator silent. Michael didn't look frightened. "She's showing us she can fix it. She can make it better." "She's not fixing anything," I said, grabbing his arm. "She's using us." By evening, the walls began to breathe again. Slow, rhythmic like a sleeper. The sound was deep enough to feel in my bones. Every door we opened led somewhere different now. The hallway might open onto the attic or the stairs might deposit us in the kitchen. Once, I opened what should have been the coat closet and found my old bedroom, exactly as it had been the night before our mother died. The bed was neatly made. My stuffed rabbit sat in the center. Its head turned to face me. I slammed the door. We ended up in the parlor again, the music box on the table, though I had seen it upstairs earlier. It began playing on its own, the ballerina spinning slower and slower until it stopped mid-twirl, frozen in a pose that looked like she was reaching for something. Michael sat beside it, watching. "She says I can stay," he murmured. Michael listened to me. But he wasn't. His gaze was fixed on the corner of the room. I followed it. The plaster there bulged outward as though something inside were pressing to get free. Faintly, shapes moved beneath the surface. Hands, faces, mouths opening and closing in silent cries. The bulge split with a sound like wet fabric tearing, and the hole that opened was not black but red, pulsing faintly. Warm air rushed out, smelling of damp soil and copper. Michael stood. "No," I said, blocking him. "She wants me," he said softly. "She's been waiting since the day we left. You don't have to." "I do." His smile was strange. "You weren't here that night. You didn't see what I saw." The wall's pulse quickened. From deep inside came a sound like a heartbeat and a woman's laugh, low and warm. He took a step forward. I grabbed his sleeve, but his body jerked suddenly, violently, as if something unseen had yanked him. The fabric tore in my hand and he was pulled into the wall up to his shoulders in a blink. His scream was cut short as the plaster closed over him like water. The bulge smoothed, leaving only the old, peeling wallpaper. The house went quiet. I don't remember leaving, only the sensation of the front door swinging open at last, the cool night air hitting my face. The storm had stopped. The woods around the house stood still, dark shapes against a moonless sky. I walked to the car without looking back. When I reached the road, I realized I was holding something. The music box. Its lid was shut, but it vibrated faintly in my hand as if something inside was shifting. Weeks later, I returned to my apartment in the city. I told myself I'd forget. That whatever lived in that house couldn't follow me here. For a while it almost worked. Until the night I came home from work to find my hallway smelling faintly of damp wood. And a single light burning upstairs. My apartment doesn't have an upstairs.